The Word of God is serious. Can you say amen? You don't play with it. You don't mock it. You don't reject it. You don't manipulate it. You obey it.
This is Dr. Jonathan Hansen, President of World Ministries International. Once again, I welcome you to the program Warning. I'm very concerned over the situation in America. This country is supposed to be a republic, which is under God. In other words, law from God. Laws that protect us. Instead of laws protecting us under God and originating with God, right now, we are being threatened with a government that is lawless. The United States of America is coming under tyranny. We're going to explain that statement shortly. This is not supposed to be a democracy, which is mob rule. France went into democracy, and the innocent were also killed with the guillotine. But this is supposed to be a republic under God. The courts were set up through laws created and originated from the Bible. Now, I don't want to take a lot of time to go into American history, which is being eradicated, because I have two special guests with me. And I do want to get on the subject, the Muslim Brotherhood. What's happening in the world? What's happening in America? I have Dr. Andy NAZARIO. He served in the United States Navy, then after college accepted a commission in the U.S. Army Reserve and obtained the rank of captain. He also served with the Lubbock Police Department in Lubbock, Texas, 5 years as a detective. He was also with the Lubbock Criminal District Attorney's Office, felony investigator, serving for 5 years. He was with the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department. He retired after 20 years as a lieutenant, although he actually retired as a captain. Now, this is in New Mexico. Currently, he's an assistant professor at Eastern New Mexico University in criminal justice. He attended the FBI National Academy. He has a BS in education, MA in public administration, PhD in business and criminal justice. He's married, and he has 2 children. Now, also, I have another guest, which is no stranger if you watch this program, Attorney Stephen Pidgeon. Attorney Pidgeon has been with me many times on this program, where we've fought issues such as same-sex marriage, but we've also exposed the corruption of the President of the United States, including his illegitimate birth certificates, forgeries, because we still, to this day, have not seen an original certified birth certificate. Now, Attorney Pidgeon has run for Attorney General in the state of Washington. Because again, law, only law, proper law, laws from God, will keep us free, will allow the republic to sustain itself, and will protect your freedoms as Christians. So again, Dr. Andy NAZARIO and Attorney Stephen Pidgeon. We're going to be discussing the Muslim Brotherhood. I have an article, WorldNet Daily. It says, Hamas, Muslim win will lead to revolution in region. The victory of the Muslim Brotherhood, Mohammed Morsi, in Egypt's election will lead to a revolution across the country and the region, declared the Hamas senior leader in Gaza during a radio interview today. Also, sodomy for the sake of Islam, July 13, 2012. Says not only did the original underwear bomber hide explosives in his rectum, but this holy warrior apparently had fellow jihadists repeatedly sodomize him to widen his anus to fit the explosives, all in accordance with the fatwas of Islamic clerics. I read, quote, after praising Allah, the sheikh's fatwa began by declaring that sodomy is forbidden in Islam. However, jihad comes first. For it is the pinnacle of Islam, and if the pinnacle of Islam can only be achieved through sodomy, then there is no wrong in it. Another article, WorldNet Daily, it says Obama spending $30 million on struggling schools in Arab kingdom. $30 million. Why is the United States paying $30 million to struggling schools promoting Islam in Arab countries? I mean, I don't understand it. Another article, July 12, 2012, Decorated General. Sharia is here now. Says retired Army Lieutenant General William Jerry Boykin is warning that Islamic Sharia law is already in the United States and is forming a cloud over the future of the nation. Boykin, addressing a packed house at a synagogue today in Stoughton, Massachusetts, said, quote, "There is a threat to this country from Sharia and the Muslim Brotherhood," noting that the Muslim Brotherhood has had a presence in the United States since at least 1962. Quote, "The new Egyptian president, Mohamed Morsi, said he joined the Muslim Brotherhood in 1978 while he was in the United States of America. People who say that the Muslim Brotherhood is not in America are not dealing in reality," Boykin said. Again, in the studio, Dr. Andy NAZARIO and attorney Stephen Pidgeon. Dr. NAZARIO, welcome to the program Warning.
Thank you.
Attorney Pidgeon, welcome back.
Thank you, Dr. Hansen.
I've invited Attorney Pidgeon because I know he also has a passion for law, for the upholding the laws of God, which this country was founded on. That's the only thing that has kept us free. That's the only thing that keeps us a republic, and actually keeps Americans from being persecuted if they're Christians. Because right now, I do believe we're under threat of Sharia law. We're under threat of the Muslim Brotherhood. Now, I'm going to ask you this question. In your opinion, Dr. NAZARIO, again, you're a professor at a university in New Mexico, and I know the universities as well as the public schools right now are eradicating truth out of the history books and taking out our Christian heritage. But most of them are pushing Sharia law. They have a favorable impression of Sharia law, as well as removing the sovereignty of the United States of America and moving us into this new world order. But Attorney Pidgeon, the Muslim Brotherhood, for people that have never watched this program before, you and I have done a program several times on it, but why don't you define it?
Sure. The Muslim Brotherhood, Al-Ikhwan al-Muslimin, was formed in 1928, and it was formed in response to the demise of the Ottoman Empire. Now, for those people who know their geography, they will know that the Ottoman Empire at one time occupied all of North Africa and held all of the Middle East under the Caliphate, which was housed in what at that time was called Constantinople. It didn't become Istanbul until the Caliphate collapsed. So there was a caliph whose residence was set up in Constantinople, and he controlled the Caliphate, a kingdom, if you will, that went all the way from Morocco and included all of the Middle East. Now, the Caliphate began to disintegrate, the Ottoman Empire began to disintegrate when the Rockefeller family put money behind a group of radical Wahhabists in the Arabian Peninsula in order to sequester the oil reserves that were there on behalf of Standard Oil. And that nation then became, in 1901, became Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia did not exist as a nation prior to 1901. And once the oil wealth was pulled away from the Ottomans could no longer sustain their enterprise as an empire. And so the empire began to crumble. There's some other traditional factors that were also at play, though, even in the 19th century, which was you had this juxtaposition of powers in Egypt rising against powers in what is now called Turkey. This particular conflict, if you will, went all the way back to the times of Alexander the Great, where the Seleucid Empire held the northern section and the Ptolemies held Egypt. this power struggle continues today, and you're going to see this. This will eventually come to shove between Egypt and Turkey. But the way it stands right now is that the Muslim Brotherhood, Al-Ikhwan al-Musliman, was created in 1928 when the Ottoman Empire collapsed following World War I. And I think what's important for us to remember here is that when the Ottoman Empire collapsed, the Levant, that we would call the heart of the Middle East, was divided between two powers, France, which held the northern section, and Britain, which held the southern section. Britain held the traditional lands of Israel, and France held what later became Lebanon and Syria. And Britain took a ruler out and drew arbitrary lines to create the nation of Iraq, and to create the nation of Kuwait, and to divide what was called the Cisjordan into the Transjordan and the Cisjordan, creating the nation of Jordan in one half of Israel and the nation of modern Israel in the other half. There was no Palestine. Didn't exist. And so in 1924, Ataturk came to power in Turkey, and he disintegrated the Ottoman Empire, retained what is left of modern-day Turkey, created a secular government, and renamed Constantinople Istanbul, and they moved on. 4 years later, 1928, Al-Ikhwan al-Musliman, the Muslim Brotherhood, was created with the express purpose of using jihad in order to recreate the Ottoman Empire. That is their charter.
Now, the world was at war with Islam, correct?
That's correct. And in fact, the war on terrorism would have been much better named the war against the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood was responsible for the assassination of Anwar Sadat, who negotiated the peace treaty between Egypt and Israel during the Carter administration. He was assassinated for that. It was the leadership of the Muslim Brotherhood that was responsible. The Muslim Brotherhood formed Hamas. The Muslim Brotherhood formed Al-Qaeda. And one of the top agents, an Egyptian doctor in the Muslim Brotherhood, is al-Zawahiri, which is Osama bin Laden's right-hand man, still at large. Al-Zawahiri, Muslim Brotherhood from Egypt.
And you need to just clearly define the goals of the Muslim Brotherhood so people really understand its danger to the United States of America.
Well, I wish I could give you the whole definition, because they have a whole motto, which is jihad is our creed, jihad is our motto, and essentially what they intend to do is, which is the impetus of radical Islam, which is, there is no, in Islam, there are, the world under Islamic leadership is called the Dar es Salam, the world at peace under Islam. It's a lie, because there is no Islamic nation that's at peace. They're beating up on each other all the time, jockeying for power. But when the Muslims control it politically, you have what's called the jizya. You have the Muslims who occupy one position, and the infidels who are second-class slaves, a second-class body of citizens that pay a high tax for the Muslims being willing to tolerate them living in what would otherwise be an Islamic nation. That's the goal, to impose that kind of Islam on every nation on earth.
President Thomas Jefferson declared war on Islam. It's called the Barbary Coast Wars, because Muslim pirates were capturing American ships and selling American citizens back to the United States. In fact, at one time it was 20% of our gross national product.
Well, the Muslims have forever been in the slave trade. You and I did a show about this. We talked about this, that in fact, the doctrines as expressed in the Quran support slavery, and particularly the enslavement of black people. The Muslims did work in Africa for purposes of recruiting and selling black Africans into slavery. They were, if you will, the wholesalers of the slaves that the Dutch and the British later sold into America. But they were purchased from Muslim slave traders in Africa.
Now, Dr. Nazario, your background is in law enforcement. You were a detective, a felony investigator, 20 years with the New Mexico Sheriff's Department, retired as a captain, attended FBI Academy. You've studied in terrorism. You understand the threat of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yes, yes.
You understand, I believe, the threat of Islam to the United States of America.
Yes, it is a threat, and we only have to look at the rest of the world, how the nations are being affected by Islam in their occupation, I would say, of different countries. Germany, if you watch the press, and if you've kept up with what Germany has stated just within the last few years, there have become so many Muslims moving into Germany that they're afraid of losing their identity of their country, and it'll become a German country.
Is Islam, is there theology, the teachings in the Quran or Muhammad, the hadiths, do they teach world domination?
Yes. This is without a doubt they teach world domination. Their whole, if you wouldn't say charter, or the Quran, documents that they have to take it, just like Christians say we have to spread the word of God throughout the world. Well, theirs is a little bit more. They have to make the world an Islam state. They have to imply Sharia law. They have to either turn you into it or turn you into a slave.
So in other words, if you're a serious Muslim, if you follow the Quran and the teachings of Muhammad, you're not just a Muslim by name, like many Christians call themselves a Christian because they were born in a Christian family, but they've never read the Bible. They have no loyalty to Jesus Christ, no relationship, so they don't follow the Bible. They're living in open rebellion. They're living in idolatry or fornication or homosexuality because they're really not true followers of Christ. But if you're really a follower of Islam, of Muhammad, actually, you have to take over your city, your state, your nation, the world for Allah. Is that correct?
That's correct, and that's exactly what's taking place in the world today. If you look at England, how they even have sections in England that are under Sharia law, where they practice Sharia law. If it's two Sharia people who recognize Sharia law, they'll actually have Sharia law over their court case.
So they believe in can we say the word terrorism?
Terrorism is a definite part of it. Some of the ideologies of terrorism and some of the structures and the cells that you see in terrorist organizations, they actually are related to similarities of the mafia.
Because if they believe, isn't it correct, that if we don't accept the teachings of Muhammad, if we don't become a Muslim peaceably through our own choice or through intimidation, that then they must kill us. Is that correct?
That is correct. In the Quran kind of has two different sections. One section's written where it says, if you're a Christian, you're supposed to be tolerant. But then on the other aspect of it, I think it's chapter 5 of the Quran, where it's talking about if you're a Muslim and a good Muslim, you're supposed to kill the Christians. It talks about the rocks crying out and saying, there's a Christian over here to kill him. The trees will cry out, there's a Christian over here to kill him. And they're ordered by the Quran to carry out these tasks against non-believers. So and it's not just Christians, it could be Hindus, it could be, but the Christians and the Jews are the foremost. They're going to kill, their ideology is to kill the Jews on Saturday, kill the Christians on Sunday.
So you attended the FBI National Academy. You took classes on terrorism. You've been taught on terrorism in law enforcement in New Mexico, especially because you were part of the leadership.
Right.
Law enforcement recognizes Islam then as a dangerous threat against the United States. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's why we formed, the government's formed the Joint Terrorism Task Force, so that local law enforcement agencies and the federal law enforcement agencies can work together to try to subvert terrorism within this country.
Then why is the President of the United States, Attorney Pigeon, let me ask you this, is he lying to the Americans?
The question is, has he ever told the truth? I think it's the better question. The reality is, Dr. Hansen, is that Obama in the 90s spent most of his career fundraising for Al-Fatah and for the PLO. That's what he was doing when he was working with Bill Ayers. That's what he did at the Annenberg Foundation. He had a group called Kind Hearts that actually had a position on his website for his 2008 campaign. And Kind Hearts eventually became an indicted co-conspirator, not like Council on American Islamic Relations, which is an unindicted co-conspirator. Kind Hearts fell under the purview of the federal laws for funding groups that were on the designated terrorist list. Now, remember that under the rules of treason, you have to aid and abet a known enemy of the United States. Usually that is construed as an enemy with whom there is a declaration of war. But we don't have declarations of war since World War II. What we have instead is we have police actions, or we have actions under the War Powers Act. However, we do have known enemies to the United States. They're on the designated terrorist list. To give you an example, Hamas is on the designated terrorist list. Hezbollah is on the designated terrorist list. Islamic Jihad is on the designated terrorist list. Al-Qaeda would be on that list. And yet Barack Obama, in the first 2 weeks he took office as President of the United States, by executive order, put $20.3 million in the hands of Hamas. And the question is, why would you fund, he said this is humanitarian aid, why would you fund $20.3 million as humanitarian aid? Why wouldn't you make it 20 or 25 million? What's the 0.3 about? Pretty exact number. And I personally have seen photographs of people working phone banks in Gaza raising money for Obama during the 2008 campaign.
Why is Obama giving $30 million on struggling schools in an Arab kingdom? What's going on? I mean, why are we paying $30 million to promote Islam in another country,
Okay.
a Muslim country?
All right, I want to try to get to the quick on this. If you recognize, in April of 2009, Avi Lipkin's wife was translating the speech that Barack Obama gave in Cairo. Now, when he went to Cairo in April of 2009, the State Department warned him about the Muslim Brotherhood leadership in Egypt, that they had killed Anwar Sadat. And Mr. Obama said, no, I want that leadership at my speech. They invited 12 members of Muslim Brotherhood leaders to that speech. The speech is downloadable on YouTube. You can watch it. You don't have to take my word for it. He opens with an Arabic greeting, and he closed in Arabic, telling the Muslim Brotherhood in Arab, I am one of you. That's what he said to them. Now, I want you to keep this in mind. If he's one of the Muslim Brotherhood changed their focus in their jihad approach against the United States following 9/11/2001. 9/11/2001 was the culmination of a physical assault against the United States. They proved they could attack our largest city and our capital city with impunity. After that, they shifted the focus to an economic jihad, not a physical jihad. In other words, undermine our currency, undermine our debt structure, undermine our solvency. All of these things became the focus of jihad. Now, put Mr. Obama in place as someone telling the Muslim Brotherhood, I am one of you, and embracing the economic jihad. I ask you this question. Has he succeeded in his economic jihad against the United States? That's a question every American needs to ask themselves. Now that he's spent $27 trillion in 3.5 years, and that excludes the $16 trillion that the Federal Reserve spent off the books, now that we have an 18% unemployment rate nationwide, now that the GNP is collapsing and we're going from recession into Great Depression, now that home foreclosures are at record highs and our cities, our industrial cities, are becoming ghost towns, ask yourself the question, has he succeeded in economic jihad against the United States? Second premise, look at what happened in Tunisia, look at what happened in Libya, look at what happened in Egypt, look at what happens in Syria. It's going on in Jordan, it's going on in Bahrain, it's going on in Yemen, it's going on in Somalia, it's going on in Kenya. You have open activism of the Muslim Brotherhood overthrowing the existing leadership. It was the Muslim Brotherhood that took the leadership in Libya. It's the Muslim Brotherhood that just took the leadership in Egypt. We paid al-Qaeda mercenaries who were shooting at American troops in Iraq to overthrow Gaddafi, which, by the way, is an international war crime and a crime against humanity. And we're about to engage in another set of international war crimes by interfering in the middle of a civil war in Syria. That's an international war crime and a crime against humanity. But nonetheless, what you have is monarchs and kings and presidents and leaders are being overthrown in these nations to establish Muslim Brotherhood leadership where? In the traditional lands of the Ottoman Empire.
Dr. NAZARIO, I could call you Captain NAZARIO. What people need to understand is the seriousness of what we're facing in America today. We're about ready to lose our country. But you understand it clearly. You're a Christian. You've been in law enforcement. Now you're a professor in a university. But you made a comment that President Obama made a speech in Egypt where he said by the year 2016, the United States of America will be a Muslim country. Is that correct?
That's correct. And the information came from Avi Lipkin, his wife, Rebecca, who is a translator for the media, television and radio media in Egypt. She is an Arabic Jew, or Egyptian Jew. And she works for the Israeli government, translating these and then giving to the government what's going on, what's being said in Egypt. And her interception of this media broadcast stated that Obama had promised them that by 2016, the United States would be a Muslim country. And it's going to do it not by terrorist acts, like the traditional, or we think traditionally is what terrorists. It's going to be just like they did in Germany, bringing in a Muslim population.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, understand, I am not a racist. If this is getting you upset, I'm sorry it's getting you upset, but you must be a Christian. I work with black leaders, both politicians, church leaders. I have a black daughter. Don't you call me a racist. You're a racist if you cannot think for yourself and see the truth. We're trying to save America. Persecution is coming to the church unless you wake up and do something. This program is listener supported. We need your best donation so I can get this message on national television. God bless you.
The Word of God is serious. Can you say amen? You don't play with it. You don't mock it. You don't reject it. You don't manipulate it. You obey it.
Do you enjoy my warning television program? If you do, I need your help. Judgment is escalating. The cup of iniquity is becoming full for the United States of America. The science of judgment is sweeping the world. Every nation is being judged. The New World Order, Islam and a 12th Imam, the Mahdi, World War III, the Mark of the Beast, the Plagues of God, over 2 billion people dying, Armageddon, and the return of Jesus Christ. Please, won't you help me sound the alarm? Partner with me. Even a one-time gift would help. Telephone now, 360-629-5248. That's 360-629-5248. 360-629-5248. Thank you and shalom.